better than you, and you know it.
If not us, who? And if not now, when?
We don't care about race or gender or sex or religion. If you're an elite athlete, we want you.
They want an alternative. They want something different to watch.
Change the world. We are going to change the whole universe!
They saw what wrestling was and realized what it could be.
All Elite Wrestling!
You asked, we answered, and it's finally here. This is the only wrestling podcast on the internet that changes the world every week. This is Seeing the Elite, an AEW podcast, and I am your host, Bryce Reed. I am joined by my friend, my co-host, my tag team partner, Mr. Jonathan Davis.
How's it going, dude? This is some crazy produced shit. We are in the new age.
I'm working with this new board, and every day that I've been testing it, I've been like, oh my god, it can do that. That makes it so much easier. So we're going to see how this goes. We enjoy this. For anybody that is unfamiliar with who we are, which is probably a lot of people, Jonathan and I, for a long time, for many years, hosted a podcast called Podcast Underground about ill-fated and probably not returning El Rey Network show Lucha Underground that we loved with all our hearts, but unfortunately, if there's no show to talk about, then there's no podcast. And Jonathan and I, friends from the punk rock scene, from seeing our favorite band, the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, just loved being able to talk about wrestling every week. And so we needed to find a new show to talk about, and what better than this revolution in pro wrestling that's happening with AEW. That pretty much brings everybody up to speed. So if you're looking for a show every week, we're going to try to do an hour to an hour and a half, if we can, if there's anything to talk about, where we talk specifically about AEW, and we're going to reference other products, New Japan, WWE, where it makes sense to reference those products, but like with
hopefully not too much and not too often.
Like with Podcast Underground, the idea for us was always to create a show that talked about the subject and only talked about the subject. And, there are a million podcasts that you can go to where they're going to talk about AEW, but they also have to talk about what happened on SmackDown, and they also have to talk about what happened on Raw. No, we're going to be your friends sitting here talking about AEW, and when we run out of AEW things to talk about, we're just not going to talk anymore because we respect your time and we appreciate you tuning in to listen to us. And thank you so much if you're a new person. We love you, and we're so excited to be here talking about AEW, but AEW isn't here yet. So the next few weeks we're going to be rolling out. This week is our retrospective on All In. Now, All In, not technically an AEW show, not technically anybody's show, not New Japan's show.
It's pretty much just the purest form of indie.
Not even an ROH show. It's a one-off show. But in a lot of ways, it's kind of AEW's self-release debut album. Their demo, if it was, a proof of concept for this company. And that's why, since we had the time before AEW Double or Nothing, we thought that we would take a week to sort of look back at this show in all of its glory. I've got notes from this show. Jonathan, of course, rewatched the show. This is a retrospective about All In and the sort of mystios around it, right? Not mythos, not mystios. This is a different thing.
It's all fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a different thing, Yeah. But we wanted to bring this here for all of you and sort of talk about this show, even though it happened a while ago, sort of a more in-depth thing. Jonathan, before we get started, is there anything you want to add to diatribe at the beginning here?
Yeah, it's like you said, we will be talking specifically about AEW. We're not going to talk about SmackDown, mainly because we don't give a fuck. We don't watch SmackDown.
I don't watch that show.
No, fuck that. The most that we actually watch is, maybe the pay-per-views once a month. And
even then, I'll see Mania, and then
yeah,
we'll
after
see where it
Mania,
goes
we're
from
probably
there.
gonna fall off the truck again because who gives a
I
shit?
am, as they say, all in for AEW.
Yeah, dude, totally. This is gonna be. It's different for us. We're used to watching a very pre-recorded show, and I mean, All In was like 6 months ago now. It's still newer to us than Lucha Underground ever was at any point through all of Podcast Underground. So
Yeah,
that's going to be weird.
I think it's important to note for fans of Podcast Underground, AEW is a different product, and we're trying to approach it in a different way. Now, of course, because it's me, and because if I didn't have them, I would be a stumbling mess, just bringing up random points everywhere, I do have notes, but my notes are a lot shorter for this because the product doesn't really lend itself to that. This isn't Lucha Underground where everything is about lore and continuity and something coming back from 4 seasons ago, and you need to be like, oh, that's referencing this, right? With my fucking Charlie Day board behind me, it's just not that show. This is a lot more wrestling focused, and as a result, this show is going to be a lot more sort of conversational about what we thought about matches, and sometimes it's going to be positive, and sometimes it's not. I think you'll already hear that tonight. But if you're sort of looking for that super deep, almost overnoted experience that we were doing on Podcast Underground, there just isn't the product here for us to do that.
No, it's not, I mean, we might have a couple portions of the show where it's like that when we talk about, being the elite, the YouTube series and stuff like that.
Sure.
Because, it's part of the product. We're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Parts of it. We're not going to, go all in on every single episode from the catalog of 140 something episodes.
I did make a promise at the end of Podcast Underground that I was going to watch all of those episodes. I can hear you coming for it. You were like, no, you're not going to do it. I watched 12 episodes of that series, and it was probably easy if people were going every week. I'm sure there are people who will listen to the show who've seen every episode. I'm not ready for that in my life. It starts out as a travel log and then sort of becomes a weird sketch show near the end.
Now, going forward, we will keep up with it.
Going forward, I'm going to keep up with it.
But that back catalog,
I can't go
no,
back.
Fuck that, man.
I can't go back. Anyway, I want to get into talking about this show and sort of talking about the origins of All In. May 22nd, 2016, Cody Rhodes requests his release from WWE. This sort of came out of nowhere. It wasn't completely unexpected at the time from my recollection because...
No, it came out of nowhere to some of the wrestling community, to like you and I when we were talking about it, because we were doing Podcast Underground at the time, and we talked briefly about it because we were sort of in between seasons, and we're like, hey man, it'd be cool, Cody showed up. Yeah. But yeah, it wasn't really out of the realm. He was very unhappy with where he was currently in WWE. His Stardust character had been just kind of beaten into the ground, and a lot of his ideas for making the character legit were turned down.
Yeah, a lot of really cool ideas. Apparently, he had broached an idea about playing Stardust on one brand and Cody on the other. A lot of stuff that people would have been cool with and thought was really great.
Right.
But,
and
it's WWE. It's creatively stifling.
From the way he spoke about it in interviews, is the Cody portrayal that he brought to Vince is the American Nightmare persona that he portrayed in New Japan, which is really perfect for him.
Sure.
It plays to his strengths of that cocky Georgia asshole kind of guy, and even more so is when he bleached his fucking hair.
Right.
But yeah, it would have suited him better than continuing with Stardust, where he was so unhappy, because he had a lot of hopes and dreams for that character that just got squashed because they didn't want to do it.
Well, WWE never treated any member of that family correctly, and I think
sad.
You know,
It was very
with Dusty especially being as big a behind the scenes man as he was outside of WWE, especially, I think the death of Cody's father, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, happened around that time that he left.
Yeah, it was kind of a wake up call to him because
I mean, I wouldn't psychoanalyze him and say that, but
No, not
but
at
the
all.
timetable for that is
it's all too close together to be just a coincidence. It's very much like this had something to do with everything. The Dream was always he was a big part of NXT. That was something that he absolutely loved more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Cody felt that he was being underutilized and not necessarily mistreated, but just he was being treated as a joke, and Dustin was being treated as a joke and had been for fucking 20 years. And other than Dusty's involvement with NXT, Dusty was kind of treated as a joke by the company.
Yep.
So I mean, he's had always good things to say about Triple H and everybody back behind the camera and all that stuff, but it's also like he wanted to do so much else with his career and his character, and he felt that walking away from and what everybody thought at the time was, oh, you're an idiot, you made the show, you should just stick with the show and do whatever they tell you to do. Is like, no, he can go away and make a lot more money, a lot quicker, a lot healthier, and do it on his terms.
We're watching right now, which we'll talk about, I suppose, in a few weeks, these Road to Double or Nothing documentaries. And there's a line from MJF in one of them where he said, "It's Cody Rhodes. Here's a guy who had it all, didn't have to leave, left, and ended up getting it all back and then some." And it really is, it's a true story. There are so many people who are in the same position that Cody was in 2 years ago now, almost 3 years ago now, that just continue to eat catering and do nothing and collect checks at that company. And if that's your prerogative, by all means, go ahead. You only have so much time as a professional wrestler. Spend it where you can get the best money for it. But he didn't do that. And
to that point, I mean, I feel like the WWE model does so much more damage to your body and lowers your prime because it does so much damage to your body.
I don't think those guys should have to work house shows, but I don't want to talk about WWE on this show. On May 16th, 2017, keep in mind, Rhodes asked for his request on May 22nd. This happens on May 16th of the following year, almost a year later. The WWE guy tweets at Dave Meltzer. He says, "Do you think ROH can ever sell out an arena with 10K plus fans, something like Madison Square Garden?" Meltzer replies on that same day, "Not anytime soon." That's when Cody Rhodes interjects, "I'll take that bet, Dave. I already gave them their biggest buy rate, put the Bucks and I on the card, and 3 months to promote." And that's all he said. And then All In takes place September 1st, 2018. Now, this is sort of seen as a big I told you so moment on Dave. And I'm not here to protect Dave. Trust me, we had our own issues with Dave on Podcast Underground. But
and I feel like part of this show is going to be it. And if this turns people off, it's going to turn people off. But, man, there are going to be a lot of times where we're going to be ragging on Meltzer because he is sucking their dick so hard.
So it's seen as kind of a proved you wrong moment to Dave Meltzer, but it is and it isn't. Both because the event took 16 months to organize and promote and not 3. And because it's not really a Ring of Honor show. Ring of Honor, despite being featured on the show, wasn't featured to the extent that I would say it was ROH selling 10K plus. In fact, in a more stunning measure, it was really Cody and the Young Bucks alone selling 10K plus.
Yeah, ROH did have involvement as well as, technically New Japan had involvement. A little bit of Impact had involvement just because of people who appeared. But no, yeah, it was in no form or no fashion co-promoted by ROH. It was simply that they allowed their talent to appear and
allowed their title to be defended and whatever, right?
Right.
But I don't think they really had a choice once they sold that gate. You know what I mean?
Man,
they were like, "All right, we'll do it."
Cool. Extra promotion for us? Yes, please.
So let's start with All In 0 Hour, which aired live on WGN America. It begins in a way most wrestling fans will find familiar. There's this sweeping shot of passionate front row fans, preceded by a wide shot of a stage, adorned with these, bright lights and enormous LED screens. But the third shot, I think, speaks volumes here. In WWE, the primary wide camera, the hard cam, shoots the action from stage right. Stage right every show, how it's always been and how it always shall be. And for many fans, even those like you and me, well-versed in wrestling products from around the globe, WWE is the measuring stick to which all other products are compared, right? Even those that no longer watch WWE products, myself included for the most part, would probably liken the brand to Blue Box mac and cheese, right? A pivotal childhood friend who has become more difficult to appreciate over time. The third shot in All In 0 Hour is a primary wide shot of the ring from stage left. By intention or happenstance, I don't really know. I'd love to talk to the people who produced this show about that. With this simple shift in perspective, and as little effort as it takes to simply place a camera elsewhere, the team involved here sent a message to everyone watching, which I think is fantastic. In these three shots, they've shown in what I think is a really artful way that what you're about to see in all its conventions and familiarity is different and alternative and kind of the opposite. It's an opportunity to examine something you know very well through the eyes of another, and it's turning a 6 upside down and realizing that it's a 9, right? Like, it's this lovely moment in the show that for me probably went by different for everybody else, but just the fact that this is shot from the other side of the ring is saying, like, okay, it's what you know, but it's not.
Yeah, it was definitely that, but it was also, you and I are familiar with watching indie show pay-per-views, specifically PWG, and it wasn't, and that was something I remarked to you, is that, man, they did a good job on production quality here.
Yeah,
the stage looked great. Mm-hmm. They had a broadcast team that was knowledgeable and not completely dumbasses. They had moments, but they, for the most part, they knew what they were talking about. They weren't just spouting off bullshit the whole time. There were some hiccups.
Two of them weren't spouting off bullshit the whole time.
Yeah,
but, right.
There were some hiccups there, which is natural for a first show. But they did it correctly. They did a good, at least visually, a good pay-per-view, because they took a notice of, we need camera angles. We can't just have this steady cam that's pointed at the corner of the ring.
And the production values are really important. It's an important note to make here, because with the production values, you're saying, hey, we have an alternative here. You don't have to sacrifice quality in order to have an alternative.
Yeah. Which is something that's
somewhat
missed.
Unusual in wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Also, I think it's important that it's a fucking regular wrestling ring. God damn.
Yeah, that was real. That's something. There's, especially since we watched Triple Mania last week, and it's that fucking hexagon or some fucked up bullshit.
Fucking dumb.
And like Impact did dumb stupid shit too with their ring. The only issue I have, the ring seems small. That may have just been due to the camera angles, because they
no, it might have been. It might have been a smaller ring. Now, rings, the rings WWE uses are as big as wrestling rings get. They use a 20x20 ring.
Right.
That's about as big as you get them. But they do make them smaller. They do actually make them shorter too, but they make them smaller, and there are some indie shows that I'll watch where it's too small. It's like 10 by 10 or whatever, and it's
I
like,
think
I
we
can't
noticed
even fucking
we
watch
had that
it.
issue with when we were watching the Wrestle Circus shows, is that was so small.
Yeah.
But I think
I'd be pretty surprised if it was smaller than a 20 by 20, but maybe it was.
It may have been just a 16 by 16, and because they were using those similar camera angles that it felt smaller. When in real reality, it's not really that big of a deal, especially for the performers. But since they're using those high production level angles and hard shots, it felt smaller because of or it may have just been the angle was a little bit off.
Yeah. I don't really know. But I do remember when I was watching thinking, I don't know if this is a full-size ring. The theme for the Elite plays over the loudspeaker as Cody and the Bucks take the stage. We get hit hard with audio issues right out the gate as the Elite tell us that they have only 90 seconds to, quote-unquote, blow the whole budget. They shoot off some pyro. They bring out the Road Warrior animal for a cameo. They shoot T-shirts out of cannons and then roll the whole thing into a PWT's commercial to get out of it. I thought it was silly. I thought it was kind of awkward. I thought it was super fan servicey, but maybe wasn't necessary for the broadcast. Maybe could have saved that time for something more consequential. But I understood the need to have them come out and introduce the show because they had been so much the figureheads behind the promotion of this event.
Yeah, I didn't mind it too much. I felt there was some stuff that happened later in the show that were more gregarious uses of time that could have been like, yo, what about your main event? Well,
especially coming into that main event.
Yeah.
SoCal Uncensored versus the Briscoes is the first match. Jonathan, before I get started on this, give me your general thoughts on this match.
This is my first interaction with SoCal Uncensored. I haven't seen them before. The Briscoes I've seen randomly in New Japan shows. I didn't actually know that they were from Southern Delaware, and I didn't know that Delaware was redneck country. I thought, Virginia, Kentucky, Georgia even. That's what I think of as, the deep South redneck meth country. It was interesting. It was a good match. It was a solid tag team match. It was a great opener, and it got the crowd ready for that battle royale, which was but it was a solid match. The ending sequence was fucking cool as shit.
SoCal Uncensored enter first, and so their shtick before making the occasion with kind words about the historic night. The Briscoes enter next, and again, I'm in the same boat. SoCal Uncensored were kind of new for me from where I come from wrestling wise, but the Briscoes I had seen around, and every time that I've seen them, they scare me.
Yeah, that's fair.
Deeply terrified by these men.
Yeah, they're legit. Some of the the people that I see when I go to Walmart occasionally. But again, I did not think that was in Delaware.
Yeah, they seem like the type of people who, like, if I could go up and talk to any wrestler in the locker room, right, I would probably steer clear of whatever room that they're in.
Yeah,
just
you might
they
have hepatitis or some shit just talking to them.
They are living that gimmick, man, and I totally believe it every time they're in the room, which is a credit to them. They have, I would say, a fairly standard tag match that, for the most part, didn't do a lot for me personally. I don't think either team in this match did much of anything that really pushed it over the top for me until the finish sequence, which I thought was great. But the Briscoes, as always, hard-hitting, scary, serviceable heels. And SCU did all right as opening baby faces. The crowd did need a little bit of warming up before they really got into it, but they also knew that they were going to be there for another 5-6 hours. So I'm sure most of them were strapping in. The finish, though, was fantastic. Briscoes set up a doomsday device as a tribute to Road Warrior, Hawk and Animal, as both of them. Kazarian rolls Mark over at the last minute as he's falling, and Scorpio leaps over them and nails Jay with a flying knee to the chin. 1, 2, 3. The winners, SoCal Uncensored.
That knee was stiff as fuck.
Knee was great, man. And they covered it really well. Shooting wise, like you just see him leaping over the pin to hit the knee. I thought it was a great finish to a tag team match. Really, everything was handled, and one of the great multi-man matches of the night where I really felt that was the case. We move to a brief interview with Kenny Omega regarding his match with Pentagon later in the night, the production quality of which is the only place where I feel this show kind of suffers. Not this interview specifically, but kind of all of the interviews. A lot of them are not mic'd properly. This one, for instance, is not mic'd properly or lit very well for that matter. In addition, the Marty Scurll thing later is the same way, and there's an interview with Nick Aldis that happens that I feel is much in the same vein. Of sort of YouTube, not even great YouTube, but sort of bad YouTube production qualities on the backstage stuff that I think they could have done a lot better on. And hope is improved with shows going forward.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think this is like especially one of the spots where this is a growing pain, a learning experience for them.
Yeah.
One of the things about the production quality that for me that was missing and needed is there are no ring mics. And if there are ring mics, they are turned severely down, and that became present in later matches where you have a guy that does shit talk a lot. And
yeah, the audio mix wasn't really great. You couldn't hear the impact from the kicks, the impact on the ring a lot. You could, funny enough, in the final in the main event, you could hear people telling each other they need to go home like every 10 seconds. But
yeah, you did. You heard. I think that was actually from the commentary booth. I think somebody hit one of the switches and the mix was coming through improperly because that's what it felt like. Because you really shouldn't be hearing the gorilla position screaming, "Yeah, they need to go home now."
Well, it wasn't gorilla position. I think it was Matt and Nick in the ring.
It could have been.
We need to go. We need to go home. But we'll get to that. We come back from a break because we're still on WGN. We come back to a music video for sort of half a song highlighting the feud between Nick Aldis and Cody, who will battle for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship later tonight. Then we move to ringside because we're about to start the over-budget Battle Royale. And so many interesting stars in here. The Best Friends in here, Tommy Dreamer, the Hurricane, Mr. Ass, all the guys. I didn't put down a list of everybody, but the two standouts for me, I thought Marco Stunt had the most to gain here, and I think he did really well demonstrating his value. He's sort of a local guy from I see him a lot in this sort of northeast sector. The really little guy with the afro.
Yeah. He did some badass shit, man. For such a small guy, man.
For a guy whose clear job in there is just to get thrown around and look funny, right?
Yeah.
Like, he did some stuff that I thought was pretty great. He did like a helicopter code breaker or whatever that was fucking great. Second place goes to Jordan Grace, the only female competitor in there. I thought she did an excellent job.
That spot towards the end where she fucking power slammed Cage was amazing.
It was awesome, dude. I mean, she's great.
She messed up the first one because she didn't have her footing right. But motherfucker, he is at least 300 pounds, and she just deadlifted his ass.
She's
Just
brave as
straight
shit,
up.
man, because she doesn't have a
Chick
normal
scares me,
women's
man.
wrestling body, right? And she doesn't even have the type of women's wrestling body like China or something like that. She has a power lifter's body, which means there are places that are muscular and there are places that have meat on them.
Yeah.
right?
She's a muscular, curvy girl.
Yeah,
Dude,
and
straight up, man, she scares the shit out of me.
There's a wonderful moment where Colt Cabana and Jordan Grace conspire to land an avalanche headbutt on Billy Ray's nards. But Bully Ray gets the classic Battle Royal swerve win here, only to have Luchador Imposter Flip Gordon get the I was injured the whole time but was never eliminated win.
I'm with Cody, man. He's a piece of shit.
This is the culmination of sort of one of AEW's first stories. wherein, for those uninitiated, Flip Gordon campaigned for months to be on All In and managed to get approval from the Bucks, but only managed to flip, intentional there, Cody when it was too late. His win in booking and execution was predictable, but ultimately I was satisfied by it.
Yeah, I was fine with it. The too long didn't read of this is basically Cody doesn't like him, and Brandy does. So Brandy has been petitioning Cody throughout, being the elite for it was a solid 3 to 5 months that he's trying. There was one spot where Flip was trying to win a spot onto All In, and they did a Twitter poll against Cody's dog, and the dog won a spot on All In.
That's fantastic. The Battle Royal I thought was booked great and was a fun watch, but I don't know that I would call it a must-watch match.
It was a great ender for the televised portion of this because it definitely did pull you in and make it. It gave you that pull of like, oh man, this guy, he's got a match later on. I might want to tune in to see that. But at the same time, it's like it is exactly the same as the Andre the Giant Battle Royale. It was a way to get people on the card so that they could be attached to this event, and also just because with how All In was booked, it was 2 events in one. It was All In and StarCast. And they had a lot of people come through to do StarCast and signings and stuff, and they're like, well, we want to wrestle too.
The commentators do their best to speed read the pay-per-view card before they have to cut the feed. All In 0 Hour drew an average of 196,000 viewers, which at the time was between what Impact was drawing and what Lucha Underground was drawing, again, at the time.
But let's put this into perspective. This was Saturday night on a not totally nationwide, but kind of nationwide local channel.
Sure.
On Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, they were competing against the beginning of football as well. They
were literally competing against the college football kickoff.
Yeah. So a good rating. Untold if they were happy with this number or if WGN were happy with the number. WGN, again, doesn't appear to be knocking on the door a second time for Double or Nothing, but that might be due to other deals and partners. So
as well as location.
Right.
Which there's a little bit of news that we can talk about towards the end of the show that came out yesterday and today.
Yeah, keep that in mind because I don't have it on my shit.
Yeah.
All In. The show opens with an unaccompanied vocal rendition of the national anthem by Shalandra Royale, a person I have never heard of before or since. It was fine, but I don't know whose crank this really turns anymore.
It's at this point, it's tradition.
Yeah. MJF versus Matt Cross. Now, MJF and Matt Cross were both people I was familiar with at the time for different reasons. Matt Cross, of course, played Son of Havoc on Lucha Underground, so both Jonathan and I were fiercely familiar with him, even with his career before then as well. And MJF I was familiar with because he was a mainstay at my local indie promotion. Is actually the champion right now at Limitless Wrestling. So I was excited for this match, and I think both of them played to their strengths here. Matt Cross is an amazing babyface because of his moveset, because of where he's from, and his sort of long-standing relationship with the industry. MJF, an excellent heel, a shockingly excellent heel considering he's been doing this for like 3 years.
Yeah, and it was a great spot. He was in a great match because Matt Cross has been doing this for 20 years now. He is a true veteran of the sport. He's performed all over the world. So he knew exactly how to get this guy over.
Yeah. And not that MJF needs any help, man, because the
he's a funny guy.
The dude is hilarious and mean in all of the best ways that a heel should be. There's a funny part in the early going where MJF teases a tope onto Cross and then stops before the jump and tells the crowd that he doesn't need to flip to get over.
Yeah,
which is great.
flippy shit.
Great, especially coming right after Flip Gordon's win. The match directly after, right? And great that he's fighting against Matt Cross, who is a very flippy wrestler. Excellent heel work by MJF again. He dominates the offense for most of this match. He has sort of a dirty style answer for every time Matt Cross starts to get off the ground. MJF hits a nasty pendulum pile driver off of the ropes, which I thought was fucking ridiculous. He screams, "It's my time, old man, not yours," just before taking a shooting star press and eating a pin. The winner, Matt Cross.
It was a solid match. It felt a little out of place to me.
I thought it was the perfect make sense opener for a pay-per-view. You want to send something out there with two people who can go really athletically.
Sure.
MJF did ground Matt Cross a lot. I'm not sure that he was the best choice, but he for an opening contest, you might have wanted to put Matt Cross with somebody who would have played off his style better rather than these two styles that are really clashing with each other. But I think MJF's personality
was perfect
makes up
for that,
his kind of difference in style.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. I kept hope, as soon as they, because, I watched All In, like 2 or 3 days after it happened, and then I haven't thought about it since, so I forgot about a lot of these matches that did happen. Mm-hmm. I forgot about this one. I still not very familiar with MJF. He's a funny guy. I don't mind him. He's a good heel. Mm-hmm. I kept hoping, and in my head, every time they said Matt Cross, I was like, yeah, it's Son of Havoc, fuck you guys. And I kept hoping he'd just pop the mask out and just put it on like halfway through the match. Just
gets sued by Univision.
Yeah, but it would have been great. I mean, I fucking love this guy. He's just always been a workhorse wrestler, and he deserves to get his dues. And I don't know if he's part of AEW going forward, but man, it was great seeing him on All In. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I hope that he'll have his matches. He's a guy who has been great for so long and never got the shot that he deserved in Vince's company, in a place where I don't know if it ever would have been the right fit for him, but I think he still deserved to be there. But he's also a guy who has traveled all over the world for 20 years doing what he loves, so that's success, man, for anybody. Commentary tells us that they're going to cut to Sean Moody interviewing Christopher Daniels about his match with Stephen Amell. We then cut to Sean Moody interviewing Nick Aldis about his match with Cody. So not really on the same page there.
It is what it is, man. Like I said, growing pains.
Nick Aldis tells us that he does not intend to lose the title this evening. Who would have guessed? And then we move on to Christopher Daniels versus Stephen Amell. John Mayer is at ringside, surprisingly not surrounded by women.
I know, what was up with that shit?
Well, maybe because there weren't any women at the show.
There was there was like just a little like 5-seat row there that was just like legit famous people who were here to watch a wrestling show, and not because they'd been paid to come to this show,
right?
But because they wanted to come see this wrestling
Macaulay
show.
Culkin was somewhere in the crowd, right?
Yeah, I think like John Heder was there with John Mayer. And it was like it was really cool. It was like these guys are here because they are wrestling fans, not because Vince needs a plug of the week. So this was a fun match. I remember watching. Yeah,
give me this match in general, please, before I rip into it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It is, just for what it was. Stephen Amell has been, teasing us for a while about getting into wrestling. He enjoys wrestling. He's friends with Cody and the Bucks from when Cody was on fucking Arrow.
Right, and he'd done that WWE match at SummerSlam before this,
and then he'd done some tag matches and shit like that. I remember when right after this came out, one of my coworkers was a big, not necessarily an Arrow fan, but a Stephen Amell fan. She's never watched wrestling before. So we sat at work and we watched this match, and she's just like, "What is this?" And I was like, "It's wrestling. It's it's a soap opera for dudes." Right. And she's like, "But why is he just laying there on the table? Why doesn't he get up?" And I was like, "We'll get there." It's okay.
Yeah, no, I thought it was great.
And,
I do actually have a note about him doing that, which
and
is
I was
awesome.
like, don't worry about it. We'll get there. And, she's like, why isn't he fighting back? And I was like, we'll get there. We'll get there. So, just fun shit like that. I enjoyed it. It was a fun match. Something that I forgot to talk about during the other match is that first, 10 seconds with MJF and Matt Cross where they're like, yeah, we're doing a real handshake. This is all in. Let's look at this fucking crowd and look what we did here. This is great.
Yeah.
That was something that really stood out to me and it was the same with this match at the end. Christopher Daniels is actually applauding Amel for getting in the ring and taking fucking bumps and putting on a good match with his limited ability and not just expecting the match to come to him and everybody to fall down for him. He took some serious bumps. He did a routine. He did a good match.
Sure. But on the flip side of that, I think this is the worst match on the show.
I don't know about that.
And I think it, this is my personal opinion. I think it definitely is. And I think it's definitely just an excuse to sit here and watch a C-list actor play wrestler. But, and I hope that this sort of thing doesn't continue. I understand they're friends or whatever, but I turn on a wrestling show to see fucking wrestlers wrestle.
Oh, you're such a bitch.
But I think he did an admirable job considering this isn't what he does for a living.
He did better than any celebrity match that we've ever seen at WrestleMania.
Sure. Because he legitimately put the work in, and I'll give him credit there. There is a really cool moment where both men fight on the turnbuckle. Daniels falls to ringside, and it looks like he almost intentionally places himself on the table, right? Which at first it looked like, he fucked up there. Then Amel leaps from the turnbuckle, and Daniel rolls off, and you realize that the whole time it was just him playing possum to get him to go through the table. Moments like that where you second guess it, and then you see that oh no, you're fucking wrong. It was intentional. That's why it looked intentional.
Yeah,
I thought was great.
And the fact that Amel took a real table spot says some shit, man.
Sure, man. I'm not putting it against the man for trying.
Yeah.
I just don't think he ever should have been in the position in the first place.
Fair enough, but it's little things like that where you just oh, okay, so it's a C-list guy. He's not going to take a real bump. And then you see him full on elbow through a table.
Sure.
Now, commentary could have took a chill pill a bit here. And the point of his elbow would have just gone through his chest. And yo, we all watch fucking wrestling, buddy. We know what's going down here.
Special guest referee Jerry Lynn starts the count. But when neither man...
I love that shit too, dude.
When neither man shows any sign of rising to meet it, he rolls to ringside and throws both men back in the ring.
Y'all are getting back in the ring. We're not.
Yeah,
done
we're gonna have a winner tonight. Daniels and Lynn argue about this, almost getting into a fist fight between themselves. Daniels hits the moonsault to end the match, gets the pin on Amel for the win. My feelings about the match are known. I really hope that there isn't this sort of celebrity involvement with this thing moving forward, even though I understand a company like this trying to go to war with Vince is going to need that. I just hope it's not a lot of let's take a real wrestler and put him against... this fucking guy from Arrow or whatever.
If it's like WWE used to do, where it's at SummerSlam or WrestleMania, they do it once a year.
Sure,
fine,
sure.
But if it's every show, then yeah, I'm with you. We have a little bit of an issue here.
Commentary welcomes Tenille Dashwood and Mandy Leone to the table. The exotic goddess Mandy Leone and Tenille Dashwood, who WWE fans will know as Emma. And I think that they did a horrible job on commentary. But
absolutely did. Agreed.
They're not commentators, and so they shouldn't be there. It's really the fault of whoever decided they should be on the commentary table, because I don't think it really did anything for the match, and all it did was highlight that they're not commentators.
That's fair. They also should have had some form of notes. And some preparation.
Yeah, instead it was just sort of ooh, that was brutal. And that was all they would say, right? And it's oh, well, okay, but I don't need that. I know that. I mean, granted, I'm a person who generally with commentary, I'm why do I know what the moves are called, right? But...
Still, both being wrestlers themselves, they should have been able to know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Chelsea Green versus Britt Baker versus Madison Rayne versus Tessa Blanchard. I thought this match, not unlike Chelsea Green, was kind of a hot mess. But I thought it was fine. I think the finish is really sloppy, but I thought most of the match I was entertained by. I think.
I would. I mean, to be honest, since this match means absolutely nothing now, with I know Chelsea Green's in WWE. I think Tessa is too, but this match just felt complete. You know, as of right now, this match was pointless. At the time, it was different. To me, the entire match was sloppy. Nothing was really done very well. This was.
I agree with that. 4
girls who clearly have worked together in the past, but just decided, you know what, fuck it, we're gonna be as sloppy as possible. It wasn't like, you know, Sasha Banks sloppy, but it was sloppy, and it could have been.
Shots fired, fuck.
Dude, fucking yeah. Well, we're whatever.
Tessa hit a fucking brutal rope-assisted code breaker on Britt Baker, which I thought was nasty. The usual one man jumps onto 3 men and knocks them all down spot seems slightly more ridiculous when they're all 120-pound women, but is sort of broken further by some blatant visible signaling. Like, she landed on the 3 girls, and you could see the 3 girls like pat her on the back and be like, "We're okay." And it's like, well.
Yeah, there was that, and then really just it may have just been I got soured by the ending, because the ending was absolutely sloppy and terribly done.
Yeah, super sloppy. There are 2 boyfriend who works at WWE shoutouts: Britt Baker using Adam Cole's indie entrance music, and Chelsea Green using Zack Ryder's taunt and broski boot on Tessa Blanchard.
So that to me felt awkward, considering one of the women on commentary was Zack Ryder's former girlfriend, fiance.
Right. And then her current girlfriend.
Yeah.
She of course didn't mention any of it, right?
Yeah, there's that. You know, I was down with everything Britt Baker did, because, you know, Adam Cole, he's my dude. But yeah, it was. Other than that, man, I was not fond of this match.
Yeah,
I think the
Chelsea
really
Green hits a number of really bad looking kill switches that were very strange. We get to this weird finish. So Tessa hits Chelsea with a hammerlock DDT and covers. Britt and Madison leap at the cover and hit the ground just short of the 3rd count. But even commentary initially thinks it's a broken pin because the way that they land, like, it's very clear that they could break the pin. They just didn't because they weren't supposed to, right?
It also
Tessa
just
Blanchard
felt like
is the winner.
The ref called it soon because he was just pissed at what was going on, or the guys in the back were pissed at what was going on.
Tessa Blanchard is the winner, and well deserved. Tessa Blanchard is an incredible female wrestler, and one who is going to stick around, because 2 of these women can't work for the company anymore because they're gone. Big hug at the end because it's a women's match, of course, and then we move into Cody versus Nick Aldis.
The other pain point on this match was they kept hyping up the Women of Honor thing, which I'm pretty sure is dead.
And maybe now. I don't know.
At the time it wasn't, but it is now, I think, dead, which is also like, this is also pointless.
Another match that's pointless: Cody versus Nick Aldis.
Hey, this match was, well, yeah, a little bit pointless.
It is now. This match is super meaningful on paper, though. Of course, Cody's father, the late great American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, was an all-time great NWA World Heavyweight Champion. So this was a big deal for his son to get the opportunity to win this title, a title that his father is almost synonymous with as one of the Mount Rushmore of the NWA World Heavyweight title.
It was a meaningful match. It was a good match. And the part at the beginning with referee Earl Hebner, that was, you could tell he kind of freeformed that. That was not planned, and that made the match a little bit more meaningful. You know, he came through. He said, like, I've known both of you guys for a very long time. I've known your father for a very long time. I'm looking forward to this match. I'm looking forward to a good match, and thank you for letting me be a part of this.
Yeah. That was awesome, man. Brandy Rhodes enters first in a gorgeous, sparkly outfit that is just enough and no more. Cody Rhodes enters flanked by Tommy Dreamer and DDP and Pharaoh.
And Glacier.
Right.
Fucking Glacier, man. That was a blast from the past right there.
Nick Aldis enters with Tim Storm, Daivari, and Jeff Jarrett. Earl Hebner, of course, the referee for this
I was amazed
match.
Double J actually has a suit.
He does. He owns one. He had to wear one to the Hall of Fame induction, too. It's probably the same suit.
And he looked fucking drunk off his ass, too.
As to be expected from an NWA match, this is a methodically paced technical wrestling match with only a few indie-style spots make their way into this match.
Like really an old-school WCW match.
Yeah. Cody uses Goldust's drop-down uppercut during the match, which I thought was great. Aldis rolls to ringside. Cody leaps over the top rope to the outside, but his face collides with Aldis's elbow, I guess, although if you watch the footage, that's not what happens.
Yeah, that was just it was what they had intended, and, yeah.
Not great execution. Hebner throws up the X as Cody climbs under the apron around the timekeeper's table.
So he can blade, but...
Well, yes, I do have to talk about that. DDP comes to check on Cody. Daivari comes out to insist the match continues, and at this point, it's been like 30 to 45 seconds after the impact of the elbow, and Cody's still not bleeding. We can still see he's not bleeding.
He's just kind of unconscious.
Right. And then DDP, the match continues. He shoves DDP. DDP slides into the ring, nails Daivari with the diamond cutter. Both men exit, and then we see Cody again, and now he's bleeding from the forehead.
The full crimson shroud. That part,
right.
The DDP part, really, it was a good callback. It made my childhood. Just, hey man, I grew up watching DDP kick ass, and he still can kick ass, and just like. Yeah, that was just good times, man.
But for at least watching at home, it was unfortunate that it was so like, okay, this is what he's doing. He's going on to cut him to blade, and like, okay, so now Daivari and DDP are in the ring so that the camera can cut away from him, and like, even though they could have just done it by cutting to Nick Aldis, so I don't really understand. But it was fine. I thought it was fine, even though it was it telegraphed a little bit too much for me. It's not super well done in terms of hiding the blade. Cody puts Aldis in the figure 4. Aldis turns it over. Cody rolls it over to the rope. I thought that was awesome that he would use that move in the match. The lights or the video feed, I think it's the video feed, goes out.
That was the video feed, yeah, because it happened in mine too.
Yeah, it happened in my video file. It happened on the one that's on YouTube. The show's on YouTube if you want to go watch it if you haven't seen it.
I wish I'd known that. Would have saved time.
Seems once again, Cody hits Aldis with an Alabama slam, which was cool. Aldis retorts with a pretty nasty looking pile driver. Then he leaps with a flying elbow from the top rope as Brandy throws herself on top of her prone husband and absorbs all of the shock from the elbow. And the crowd, of course, starts chanting asshole.
As you do.
As Aldis pins Cody, who kicks out at 2. Cody with this really soft-ass looking disaster kick into a crossroads. The finish is great. Aldis goes for a sunset flip. Cody underhooks both of Aldis's legs and then sits down forward. 3 counts from Earl Hebner, and Cody becomes the new NWA World Heavyweight Champion, which is a huge moment on the show. Totally awesome for his career, a great moment for professional wrestling that would just sort of kind of be reverted like a month later when Aldis wins the title back at a different show.
Yeah,
but
it's fine. No one really expected Cody to keep this belt long anyways. At the time, this was not long after Billy Corgan had officially bought the NWA, and all of this was done with his blessing and everything.
Yeah.
So that we all knew going into this whole thing, we all knew Cody was going to win the belt. We all knew Cody would lose the belt at some point in the near future. He would not be keeping this long term, but it's something that needed to happen for wrestling history, really.
Yeah, I thought it was wonderful that it happened on the show. Wonderful that it happened at all. Yes. We move on to Being the Elite. A recap from Being the Elite with Hangman. It kind of goes over the Hangman and Joey Ryan story before we move into the bad boy Joey Janela versus Hangman Page in a Chicago street fight. I thought that this match was okay.
Yeah, this was my first real interaction with Joey Janela. I'm impressed by him. He does a lot of good work. Hangman Page, I've never really been too impressed by him. I feel like he's filling in that role that Adam Cole had, and he doesn't have the charisma of Adam Cole.
I think he's getting there. He hasn't been doing it so long that he doesn't have time.
He's getting there, but at the time he just didn't have the charisma. It was a good street fight. It was. I get you and I have talked about this before. I get tired of people calling shit street fights, and then there's just nothing.
Yeah,
happened.
Even here, like, you'd think that they would say Street Light and this would be their chance, and maybe Double or Nothing will be where they really do that. But you'd think when they said Street Fight, this would be their chance to do something that you couldn't see at WWE, right? And I'm not saying people got to be taking chair shots to the head or exploding barbed wire or light tubes or anything like that necessarily. But if you're going to have a street fight and you're trying to say, hey, we can present an alternative, which maybe they weren't entirely doing on this show.
You need some kind of crazy spot.
You need to do, the kind of spot where you were like, WWE wouldn't do this, but we're going to do this because we know that you're not 5.
Right.
Do the cinder block thing or whatever. I don't know. The bad girl, sorry, I'm skipping ahead. The Cracker Barrel spot is where I'm going to start here.
That was fucking amazing. I was down for all this shit. The actual Cracker Barrel just becoming an object. I'm like, all right, whatever, fuck it. It's always been a running joke on Twitter with the boys from the Elite of that everywhere they go, if there's a Cracker Barrel, they do stop there and eat dinner there. And take a picture in the the old rocking chairs, and then like, oh yeah, Cracker Barrel sponsoring the show. Here's the actual barrel, boys. And like, all right, I'm gonna fuck you up with this. It was great, man.
Janela sets up a ladder from the apron to the Cracker Barrel. Paige drops Janela with a burning hammer on the ladder, which seems mostly unaffected. The ladder does. The bad girl, Penelope Ford, attacks Adam Page to pull the heat off of Janela for the moment. Ford helps Janela put Page through a table with a flying elbow. Janela and Ford set up tables in the entryway, and Page powerbombs Janela off the stage through the tables. That was great, even though they set up 2 tables and only one of them got touched.
Yeah, that was full on. Like you did this move in the, you were 2 feet off, buddy.
Right. Page hits his finish. Janela kicks out. Ford hands Page a trash bag. He empties it inside. It's his talking cowboy boots, right, which are affecting him mentally. Ford reaches for the boots. Page super kicks her in the face. Janela super kicks Page off the distraction, and Page reaches into a second trash bag. Inside is the phone that he used to kill Joey Ryan. He wraps the cord around Janela's neck and hits the rite of passage off the ladder through the table, which I thought was a great finish. 1, 2, 3, the winner, Hangman Page. I think this was longer than it needed to be, and we're going to find out later that it was longer than it intended to be.
Yeah, I think it was like at least 5 minutes overtime.
We'll talk about it. It's crazy. I thought it was okay.
It was okay. The thing that happened after it, while it was funny, did take away from this match considerably.
Sure. I agree with that. The lights go out and we see dead Joey Ryan's penis inflate as a gang of the biggest white cocks I've ever seen take the stage.
I did crack up at this. It was funny, but it was
in
also
2 lines. Joey Ryan rises from the dead and does his Joey Ryan shit to Hangman Page, and then the cocks carry Hangman out of the arena. I thought it was funny. I thought it was.
It
great.
was funny. It took too much time though.
I would have taken time away from the match before I took time away from that segment. Honestly.
Right. It was just the combination of both. Of this, while it was funny, them carrying him out, they were kind of walking at a bit of a snail's pace.
Yeah.
It needed to happen. It paid off that storyline. It was funny. I love Joey Ryan. He does the, cock suplex, then the dicks coming out were like,
Right.
all right, we're going there.
Very reminiscent of an Undertaker entrance, right? But
Yeah.
with dicks,
But the outrage on the internet was not warranted at all
About what?
about this segment.
Oh, fuck off.
That's what I'm saying. It wasn't warranted. Take a chill pill.
Yeah.
This was something. It was funny, and if you've never heard of Joey Ryan, okay, fine. This is Joey Ryan.
What, you don't think a cock is funny?
Yeah, you don't think
Cocks are funny.
You don't think a guy can suplex a guy with his penis? What's wrong with you? He's got an iron dick.
Backstage, we see an unknown figure transform Jay Lethal into his alter ego, Black Machismo. And we move into the next match, Flip Gordon versus Black Machismo for the ROH World Heavyweight Championship.
So, entrance for this match, loved it. I'm so down for this. I'm a huge Macho Man mark. It was great. Lanny being there was great. When he kept flipping out of his alter ego and whatever, and they just slapped him, and then he was back into it. It was great. I mean, to me, it was, nowadays Macho Man would be considered boring because of how, that 80s work style, which, when I was a kid, it was awesome. It was great.
I think in the ring, maybe, but I think
His
Macho Man
personality-
as a character still would have worked because I see a lot of, like when I see Pentagon move, which is the big deal about Pentagon, I see a lot of sort of, not specifically Macho Man mannerisms, but sort of a Macho Man philosophy to how the character should interact within the world.
Sure, that's fair. And it's just that was one of the biggest things that brought me into wrestling, especially that personality that he had was it was cocaine filled. But it was just so
Slim Jim fueled, okay?
Sure. It was out of this world, and that seeing that again, being 30 years old and watching this wrestling show, and there's a guy who is emulating Macho Man because he grew up watching Macho Man.
It's a hell of an impression, man.
And
it really is.
Having his Macho Man's brother, his blessing to do this, and being right there with him, it was great.
Yeah, it was great. Flip enters with Brandy Rhodes, who is now in a sexy version of a military outfit.
That didn't make sense to me, but I was fine with it.
Jay Lethal enters in an authentic Macho Man jacket.
And pants.
With the genius Lanny Poffo by his side. Mega Powers handshake with Lanny and Flip is great, as is Jay Lethal being possessive with Brandy at the beginning of the match. I thought it was really funny.
It was 100% just pulling me back to me being 5 years old, and Miss Elizabeth is running around the ring and all that shit. It was amazing, dude.
Machismo chases Brandy around the ring, then back in. Brandy stops him. She says, "I'm not Elizabeth," and he lifts her onto his shoulder and parades her around the ring. It was fantastic. She then taps Black Machismo on the shoulder. And he turns back into a very confused Jay Lethal. Flip and Jay get into it in earnest now, and one of the night's more exciting matches, I think, between these two guys.
Absolutely.
Definitely in the top half, I thought, of this show was this match. Lanny turns Lethal back into Black Machismo. Lethal hits Flip with a body slam, then 3 consecutive Macho Man elbows, and then covers, gets a kick out, and that's when Flip hulks up. This is the part, I didn't think the hulk up and all that was necessary, but I'm not going to judge it that much on the match. Flip hits... Flip wins with a lethal number of awesome Flip moves. Lethal is the winner of the match via a rebound cutter. Both men celebrate before Bully Ray comes out in to attack both men.
This was so pointless, dude.
Yeah, I thought this was dumb. In an apparent continuation of an ROH feud that he's having with Flip, he kicks Lanny in the balls and then sets up a table. Then hometown hero Colt Cabana makes the save.
That was funny, but
he definitely should have had a piece on the show. The whole Bully Ray thing I thought was dumb. Lethal, Flip, and Cabana do a Shield-style triple powerbomb through the table on Bully Ray. The crowd even chants, "Ooh, ah," when he lifts up, right? Which was dumb. But
I mean, I will say, I felt like Bully Ray's just being on the show. He was I feel like he overestimates. He thinks he's just this legend, and to an extent, yes, he is a legend. But he tried to make this whole show about him twice, and maybe that may have been in the writing to do this. Absolutely,
It definitely was. I mean, at the end of the day, we can blame Bully Ray all we want, but somebody had to put him on that show.
Sure,
so.
and I mean, it may have been part of the ROH thing. Is like, if you want to do our belt, you have to continue our storyline here,
Right,
and that's fine. That's you have to negotiate. You have to make concessions where you have to, but I just. Everything to do with Bully Ray in this whole thing just felt overdone and not necessary. And I mean, it's partly just because I can't stand the actual Bully Ray character. Mm-hmm. It's just full on. It's like, okay, cool, you're a fucking piece of shit. That's epitomizing all of the negative stereotypes about wrestling that people have been trying to get out of the industry. That you don't haze people and you don't stiff arm people for no reason as the way of teaching and making you gotta earn your stripes and all that shit, and it's like, it's just not necessary.
Yeah. Longtime fans and friends will know that the next match was my favorite match on the show. This is the match between Pentagon Jr. and Kenny Omega, which is my favorite one on the show. I don't know that I would say it's necessarily the best match on the show, but it's definitely my favorite match on the show. And if a match beats it, I think it's only by a very small amount in terms of overall. But it's subjective. It's subjective. Yeah. So what's the difference between best and favorite? Yeah. I don't really know. Pentagon enters, of course, looking cool as shit, as he always does.
So I did have a little bit of an issue with his entrance.
Oh, he came in without the mask, and then he put it on, and then he took it off.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna put." That whole thing.
He's like, fuck it.
But other than that, I love this match. Pentagon and Kenny Omega are two of my favorite fucking dudes in the world. They're my favorite wrestlers, so this was everything I wanted in a match. It was amazing.
It is at the beginning of this match that All In actually hits #1 on Twitter trending worldwide, which shows that people were kind of tuning in over time, or rather, at the very least, talking about it more on Twitter over time. Now, even at this point, Twitter was kind of losing its importance as a social media platform. Certainly not to the extent that it has now, where it's really receded, but at the time, it still mattered that something was trending #1, and I think it still does now, just to a lesser extent.
And then also, I think the pay-per-view itself started at 8 or 9 o'clock, so this is also when people started tuning in off of football, as well as the West Coast. So it makes a lot of sense that this started becoming really impactful on Twitter and everything.
Legitimately huge feel to this match. Like, these two guys are fucking awesome, and it's the first time in the night, even with Cody and Nick Aldis for the championship, didn't have that sort of big fight feel to it. This one fucking did. And
there were no
people were standing
for
the entirety of the people were standing for the entirety of the entrances.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I thought that was fantastic. A lot of pure wrestling in here too.
There was not a lot of luchador shit.
I mean, a lot of Pentagon's moveset isn't that, because he's a brawler for the most part. Like, he does a couple of luchador moves. He does a Canadian Destroyer, right?
But not like,
and he'll do a tope, but he's not
very
Phoenix.
Different, his moveset in this match compared to his matches in like Lucha Underground. Like, he went full brawler on this. Now, given this match was like 6 months since he'd actually been on Lucha Underground.
Sure.
So it was a different feel, but man, this was such a good match. So good.
Omega hits Penta with a series of V triggers. Penta throwing up the 3 up, 3 down between each one, right? He drops Omega with the fucking brutal package pile driver on the apron. Which is the moment of the match, man. That looked hard as shit, dog. Omega fires back with a spinning package pile driver of his own in the center of the ring. He follows it with another V-trigger. He's really just like spamming the V-triggers in this match, which maybe is part of his style. I haven't seen a lot of his matches, to be honest.
No, dude.
So maybe that's...
Kenny was straight up. He was spamming. It was just like he was playing a fighting game and just spamming finishing moves. I was like, I can't do anything else. Fucking die.
He tries to hit the one-winged angel several times during this match, but Penta fights out. Penta slaps on the hammerlock arm breaker and snap, breaks the arm of Kenny. That the arm that he uses to finish the one-winged angel usually, which I thought was genius strategy for the character, right? Like, oh, this is what he uses to lock in his finish. I'll just break it.
Yeah, he can't do shit now.
Right. Pentagon follows with a package pile driver in the center of the ring. 1-2. Omega survives. Omega spams V-triggers and an inverted Frankensteiner until Penta is dazed, then lifts Pentagon and hits a one-winged angel with the opposite arm, which I thought was great. The story that they told throughout this match, I think this was the match that told the best in-ring story out of all of them. And the winner is Kenny Omega. And I love the little touches he did. He wouldn't even let the ref lift the arm that was broken. Like, he tries and he's like, no, I don't lift it. It hurts too much, right? Which I thought was class. The lights go out, and of course, then the Jericho thing happens, which I thought was fine. But just an advertisement for the cruise, basically.
Yeah, at the time, it was fine. Coming back to it now, it's pointless because... it is what it is. You know, it was.
And even at the time, I remember thinking, man, after such a great match, I wish that Pentagon had had a moment.
Yeah.
With the crowd, you know.
So it is what it is. It was all right. The thing it's okay. Like, I rationalized it to myself now is like, you know, Jericho is he's part of All In Wrestling, so it's okay. It's right. Fine. It is what it is. It sucks that they were just doing this, you know, one-off thing to hype up the cruise. If that had led to something like in New Japan for like Wrestle Kingdom, I think I would have been more interested in it. Mm-hmm. But just it is what it is. I enjoyed that one moment more than I did the next match.
Yes. There was a fairly terrible skit with Marty Scurll here. I don't know. Maybe some people found it funny. I don't want to be too negative about it, but for me, it didn't do much from a production value standpoint or from a comedy standpoint. The idea being that there are these sort of business suit type naysayers who are like, you can't wrestle like
just
that.
Matt and Nick.
Right, and then he snaps their fingers or whatever, and you know, again, maybe I don't want to yuck anyone's yum, you know, maybe it really spins some dude's dreidel, but it wasn't for me.
I enjoyed like the first like 10 seconds of it when they were like, "You're not a heavyweight, you piece of shit."
The match though with Okada, I thought was great. I didn't think it was as great as the previous match, but I thought it was great.
It was a good match, and they had way too much time.
Well, they didn't have that time. They just took it.
Yeah.
Neither of these guys really do anything for me, honestly, outside of this. Like, I've seen Okada matches. I've seen Scurll matches. They're not in my favorites, but I don't think they're bad wrestlers. They're just not my guys.
I like Okada. I haven't seen a lot of Scurll, but this was just... yeah.
But this is great because we can learn more about them as we move forward through this show.
Well, no, Okada's not coming All In.
Oh, we'll see. You mean AEW?
Yeah,
All In. He was not.
He's not coming to AEW. He signed a long-term contract with New Japan. I mean, it's possible.
Yes, but right now we don't know that AEW won't have a working relationship with New Japan.
As of this moment, right now, you know, March. Sure. 2019, it's not happening. Mm-hmm. That might change tomorrow, but from what we know now, we're not going to see much more of Okada.
Okada hits Scurll with a gnarly DDT on the floor. Great selling from the villain. I really believed that he was having trouble maintaining balance after head strikes and stuff like that. I thought his selling was awesome. Great tombstone reversal into a tombstone spot. The moment with Okada setting up the Rainmaker and then takes a second to signal 205 to the crowd. And the
was
crowd
fucking
chants
hilarious, dude.
He chants along as Marty grabs Okada by the fingers and then breaks him. I thought that was a great spot. Okada hits a drop kick, attempts the Rainmaker. Skrull turns it into closing time. Okada fights out, but Skrull slaps it back on. And then Skrull pushes Okada into the ref, who goes down immediately. And then Marty uses his all-in umbrella for some umbrella-related shenanigans that aren't blocking rain. Really doesn't seem like it should be legal. And then hits the Rainmaker on Okada as the ref wakes up. 1-2, Okada survives. Okada nails Skrull with 2 Rainmakers for the pin. And your winner is Okada for the match. This match took a little bit of time, and so the show rolls right into the main event with very little fanfare. They're sort of just like, up next, we're not going to take any more time before getting to this match. The reason they're not going to take any more time is because they don't fucking have it.
Yeah.
Because they're about 13 minutes from the broadcast cutting out because they didn't buy another hour.
Which was fine.
So-
They shouldn't have had to.
Right.
There was some like an avalanche starting with the Hangman match where they start Hangman and then went overtime.
I have a breakdown of it later.
Okay, cool.
Ibushi, Jackson, and Jackson, that's the Golden Elite versus Phoenix, Bandito, and Mysterio. It looks like at the time Phoenix had just become AAA Mega Champion, which is interesting looking back. Awesome to see Ray pull out the Wolverine costume, not only because it was a great costume, but him pulling out a superhero costume like that is an indication of what the event meant to him. He doesn't do that for every event.
No,
the superhero
he
costumes
really
he
just
does
does
for WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And he used to do it if he did it for Bash at the Beach with Eddie and stuff like that.
I think he did it for Greatest Royal Rumble as well. Or that, that second
I
one.
feel like maybe the second one. I didn't watch the second one. The first one, Greatest Royal Rumble, he was just sort of in a Saudi Arabia themed outfit.
Well, they did 2 events, didn't they?
Yeah, they did 2. They're going to do more.
I'm
too.
sure. I know. I think one of them he did like an Iron Man gear. I feel like I could be wrong on that. I'm just but that's fine.
He's done Iron Man gear before, but maybe he redid it again.
Yeah.
There are only so many superheroes that people give a shit about.
And that kind of line up with him.
Right.
You're not going to see, Rey Mysterio coming out here and, Mr. Fantastic gear.
Rick Knox is the referee, which is nice to see. This match, according to Meltzer, was supposedly supposed to run 28 minutes on paper. As it is, it runs 12 minutes. The reason being that both Paige Janela and Okada Skrull went significantly over time, in quotes, significantly over time. This seems to be corroborated by several shouts of "go home" in the ring, not from the crowd, from people in the ring, meaning we have to end the match. And the feed cutting out
almost immediately after.
I counted it. I think it's like 23 seconds after after the last bell. Is the feed just kind of cuts out with the commentators going like, "Oh, thank you so much for coming."
Yeah, it was.
So I can't say for sure, but I honestly, I'm gonna be honest about it. Rewatching this match and watching it the first time, it's short, but I don't think it's necessarily hindered by the short run time.
It's not, and that is purely because of the guys that were involved with the match.
Sure. I like how condensed the match is, though. I like that there aren't a lot of wait times that they're rushing.
Sure. If this had been 6 other guys where, Ibushi's been in the business for a long time. He's a semi-veteran. The Young Bucks have been doing this for 15 years now. Ray's been doing this for God knows how long. Yeah.
Ray always has been and always shall be.
Yeah. Bandito is literally the new guy on the block.
Right.
So if you didn't have those...
but he's like 7th generation or some shit like that.
So, I mean, between, Ray and then Phoenix obviously is a workhorse and can, just put anything. If you didn't have the Bucks and Ray in this match, I feel like it would have felt differently.
Yeah.
But they know they've been in many situations where it's like, okay, fuck, we gotta cut things out. We gotta run this quick. We're gonna call audibles as much as we can, but let's hit the big spots.
Yeah. Yeah, they had to really just pull out all the fat out of the match and just do it, which I think is probably a bad thing because I'm sure that they had a great match in mind and some great stuff had to be cut. But at the same time, I don't have a problem necessarily with a condensed version of it. This from a guy who spent several years doing a podcast about a show where the whole point was that it was condensed.
Yeah, and I think that's helped us out a lot. At the same time, having this condensed match, I think it kind of did hurt them because they were rushing. They didn't give, some moves time to set in. They didn't have enough time to necessarily just take a breath and get your breath back before you have to jump in. There's that one spot towards the beginning where Phoenix, fucked up his rope move.
Mm-hmm.
They redid it real quickly, but, immediately after that, he's doing this next thing. So he didn't have that chance to just take a breath, get your bearings.
Yeah. The entire Ibushi Mysterio portion is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very, very sad that we couldn't get a singles match out of that.
Yeah, it's a damn shame. Someday, maybe. Probably not, though. After that, there's an amazing moment where Mysterio hits a DDT on Matt Jackson, and you can, Matt sits up towards the camera and says, "Oh my God." I thought it was wonderful. Phoenix leaps over the top rope and nails Matt with a super kick as a voice can be heard saying, "We gotta go home, we gotta go home." Ibushi comes back in. God, he's just fucking awesome in this match, man.
I'm really hoping that either a future event that we get Phoenix versus Ibushi for either a title of some form or a singles match, because I think they could tear the house down, man.
I agree with you. He's still locked in a New Japan contract, but I agree with you. Backflip double Pele kick from him was fucking insane. Nick comes in and clears house with some awesome strikes. The Luchadors do a bunch of topes, and then everyone gets dragged into the entryway so Matt Jackson can jump off the stage. There's a moment here where you can see Ibushi crumble even though no one even got close to hitting him.
Yeah.
Which is great. Everyone back in the ring. Mysterio almost hits a 619 on Matt, but Matt catches it and turns it into a Meltzer driver. But the Luchadors interfere, knock away Ibushi and Nick. Mysterio head scissors Matt back onto the middle rope. 619 Mexican Destroyer from Phoenix. Inverted Frankensteiner from Bandito. Phoenix and Bandito jump onto Nick and Ibushi at ringside. Frog splash from Mysterio onto Matt all alone in the ring. 1-2. Kicks out of the frog splash. Bandito hits Matt with an avalanche backflip blockbuster, which was insane. 1-2. Nick breaks the pin. So you can hear someone in the ring saying, "We gotta go right now."
Yeah, because and even just looking at the timers of the files, they have 2 minutes.
Triple more bang for your buck. 1-2. Phoenix breaks the pin. Meltzer driver on Bandito. 1-2-3. Winners, the Golden Elite. And there are 23 seconds from the sound of the final bell to the end of the broadcast.
Yeah, and I mean, I know they did do in the room. They did do a couple speeches after the fact. Obviously, we don't know what was said because the video had to cut out because the pay-per-view was done.
Right.
Overall, I really enjoyed this match. It really sucks that Ray is now in WWE and we won't get to see any more of him. I'm not sure what Bandito's involvement is going to be with All In since he signed with ROH.
Sure.
So that also sucks because, man, I think he's got a badass gimmick. He's got a cool as shit mask, and I've never seen one that's like that.
Yeah, he's great, man. He's awesome in the ring. His gimmick is great, and his mask is great. And I would have loved to have seen him in AEW, but they're signing a lot of people, and it's interesting to see who makes the cut. Some of their signings, like Pentagon and Phoenix, are not even real signings. They're just sort of per appearance basis things, which is great because I love that they do that. But
we'll talk about that in the news.
Okay. Well, that's where we are. We're at the end of All In. It's been a pleasure to look back at this show, even though a lot of it doesn't really correlate directly with Double or Nothing. But Double or Nothing is named as what you would expect the sequel to be to this show, which I think, ties it to sort of being like the pilot episode of a TV show, right? Where most of the things are going to be the same or correct, but some things have been changed a little bit. And
they definitely, there's going to be parts of this of Double or Nothing where it's like, okay, we're taking this as a learning experience. We learned from what we did. We can improve on it. Yeah. We can do better on some things. I think
Double or Nothing is going to be like the second episode of The Sopranos, right?
Yeah.
Because they shot the first episode of The Sopranos and then it sat on a shelf for like 2 years or whatever.
Something like that,
and so the second episode of The Sopranos, like the kids are like 2 years older. And some slight things about the way the story works have changed, So I think it'll be really interesting to see that. Let's talk about this news because I don't know what you're bringing to the table.
Sure. So most of this is rumors. Nothing is super confirmed. But All In 2 is rumored to be happening again in Chicago this year.
Huh.
Yeah.
Why they would call it All In 2?
Just move past that part.
They would do another show in Chicago.
Right, that is seemingly the sequel to All In, but not necessarily, but it's a repeat.
I mean, it would be foolish for them to not go back to Chicago. That's a really hot wrestling area.
Right.
So
naturally, after what happened at Ray to Rays last weekend, the AAA belts will be defended by the Jacksons at Double or Nothing versus Penta and Phoenix, who that match has already been announced. And then having to do with Penta and Phoenix, there is a very substantial rumor going around that in the near future, the U.S. television rights with Penta and Phoenix will be through All In, and there will be an exclusivity contract signed.
With All Elite Wrestling?
Yes. Sorry, I keep saying All In, but yeah, with All Elite Wrestling.
It's very confusing. Lots of alls going on.
Yeah. So AEW would have the television exclusivity rights in the U.S. for Penta and Phoenix, so that would be their main promotion, not Impact.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. So, those are the news items that I've seen in the past couple of days. Every as it sits right now, we have 2 shows for AEW coming up. We have Double or Nothing. We have Fight for the Fallen.
Yeah, Fight for the Fallen in a surprisingly small venue.
Yes, it's kind of it's
like 5,500 people.
It was the show that they wanted to do next, but it kind of just happened on the spur of the moment of everything that's been going down.
Yeah.
We don't really have much in the way of cards for either show, which is a little bit troublesome for Double or Nothing that we know one match that's going to happen.
Show's sold out. They don't need to announce shit.
Absolutely, no, they don't. But it's still like as a fan, that's going to be watching.
I'm sure
this
we'll
show.
learn. We'll learn more about it as we move forward. I mean, they did the same thing with All In. We sort of learned about a match every week and a half.
Yeah, it's just like there's just this much more of a. I want to know it all right. I want to know, man. And
well, that's great because we have reasons to come back every week.
Exactly, and that's I will say the thing at Ray to Rays was a little. As soon as it happened and you told me about it and I read about it, I was like, oh, okay, so that's why they're doing the tag match because they're going to put the belts on the line.
Sure. A little choreographed, but I'm down with it. Especially with them announcing the partnership with AAA. Okay. The next few weeks. Next week we're going to talk about. We're going to do a whole show, sort of talking about the event that was the Jacksonville announcement of AEW as a company. The following week we're going to do a show.
Next week will probably be a lot shorter.
Yeah, I mean, next week will be shorter than this show, sure, because we don't have 4 hours of content to blaze through, right? sort of what happened between All In and this show. We're going to do some research and talk about that. And then, not that I have to do much because I was there for most of it. But after that, we're going to talk about the happenings of the ticket release party in Las Vegas. And all of the talent that they signed here and who we think would be great talent for the company moving forward as well, and sort of their strategy seemingly from our perspective. And then we're just going to try to come back every week. But like I said, if we don't really have anything interesting to talk about, there may be some weeks where we simply don't appear. And we hope that that's going to be all right. Now, I understand full well that part of a successful podcast is consistency, but I wouldn't want to come on here and waste anybody's time and talk about shit that you don't care about if there's nothing to talk about. So I should hope that you'll just stay subscribed, and when we're here with you, if something is happening, we're going to be here to talk about it. So
yeah,
that's kind of where we are. Monday mornings is going to be kind of our posting schedule.
In the midst of all this, we might do a WrestleMania recap just because it's the big thing of the year, man. It doesn't matter if we watch WWE or not. WrestleMania is a thing.
I'm probably not going to want to talk about that show.
Probably not, because
looking at that card, I'm probably not going to want to talk about that fucking show.
We gotta leave the door open.
We're going to do whatever we want because we own the show. seeingtheelite.podbean.com or on all, I'm going to try to get it on all the services, Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, wherever you're listening. Thank you for doing it. We want to make this your show. That's why you need to go to our Facebook. You need to get the link to our Discord channel, and that's where the action's happening. We're talking with AEW fans from all over the world, and it's wonderful. And we're on there all the time, just talking, just having a great time as a community. Other than that, I want to thank you all for joining us this week. Next week, we're happy to be back, and it'll be a great show where we talk about All Elite Wrestling in earnest, finally. And as always, for me, from my friend Jonathan, change the world. Thank you.